YouTube, welcome back. Hello YouTube, welcome back to one of our deck profiles. Today we've got MLB and ThinkSaver, a deck that I've loved since it came out. Even though it's not like meta anymore, I still try to make it work, and I do win a couple games with it. Let's get into it. So for our starter, we have Wingal Brave. This is the best starter we can run because it lets you search any missing piece you want as long as it hits. The only thing to keep in mind about this is because its name is Wingal Brave, you can't run 4 of the grade 1 that came out in the MLB deck, but that's okay. This card's really important. 2 grade 3 MLBs. I only run 2 because we can search for it with the starter every game. I can understand if you want to run more, but I think 2 is fine. I see it most games. And if I'm not seeing that, I see this guy, which is the best finishing card this deck could ever have, in my opinion. ThinkSaver Dragon, what he does is let you swing Vanguard 3 times. He's the only card in Royals, I'm pretty sure, that lets you do that. But the downside to him is he costs Counter Blast 2 and Soul Blast 3 every time you do it, and 2 cards in hand. So most of the game, you sit on MLB, building up resources and force markers to then go into this guy and try to win the game. There's only 3 legions because we got this guy in Clan Collection. He lets you be the last Vanguard you call out with ThinkSaver because he gives you a force marker, and if you have the counterblast, you can call Blaster Blade Seeker and he gets huge. So normally you'd attack 1, get the next one, 2, and then this one, get a marker and the Seeker and swing for a 3rd time. All the numbers are usually in the 40s or 60s depending on where you put your force markers, because every time you put one on Vanguard, it gives power to the Legion Leader and the Mate, which I'll pull out right now. So normally this would be a 23, but because it has a force marker, it'd be a 43 because it gives 10k to both. So that means if you get 2 force markers, this becomes a 63, and it's really annoying to guard. That's it for grade 3s. As far as grade 2s, it's pretty self-explanatory. 4 Blaster Blade from Overdress. I like this one more than the V-Series one because you get to draw a card, and you don't have to spend a soul because you're going to need all the soul for the ThinkSaver turn. This makes it a really good ride along with Blaster Dark from V-Series. Either one of these is good to ride because you plus. They're not really useful on rearguard. They don't really have any crazy effects like most of this game does at this point. But he gives you Twin Drive by pitching a card. Most of the time you're going to pitch like extra ThinkSavers you don't want, or it's pretty much a cycle, except a drive check is better than a draw. It's important to run this one because he's also a Royal Paladin. 2 Blaster Blade Seeker. This card, for the longest time, was only good because he was the mate. But then they made this new one in V-Clan Collection for the new ThinkSaver, and he actually lets you draw a bunch of cards. He says after he swings, if you did not ride this turn, draw a card and put him to the bottom of the deck. This really is not as good early game unless you start staying on grade 2 for a long time, but it's really good when you get into the later game with Twin Sword because you can swing with him, he goes back to the deck, draw a card, and then you call him back out with Twin Sword when he swings and you draw more cards. This deck also doesn't ride a lot. Like, you're not riding to get markers, you're just riding once with MLB, and he's getting you markers whenever you want them every turn, so you don't have to rely on keep dropping a grade 3 from hand. The next card is Favored Pupil of Light and Dark Lu. This guy's been a staple in the deck. He gives you soul and he gives you the missing blaster you need for MLB. He's also really good on the Twin Sword turn because he gives you a bunch of multi-attack when you call grade 2s. I don't run him at 4 anymore because he's only a 9k body, while most of this game is 10k at this point due to V and D. But he's still really good. And then the last grade 2 we run, which I wish I had, but I did not receive my promos yet, is 3 Knight of Inheritance Emmeline. I'm still holding out hope for the promos to show up, so I haven't bought them yet because they're like $40 each. So I printed out proxies. This card came out, I want to say, in Japan like 6 months ago, and we just got it in English maybe last month. But it's really important to the deck. It's an overdress promo. What it does is when it's placed on rear guard from hand, very important from hand, Soul Blast 1 and look at top 5 for any blaster and call it to the board or put it in your hand. If you call it to the board, you don't pitch a card. If you put it in your hand, you have to pitch a card. So this lets you get away with only running 2 MLB with the starter and the other Wingull that I'll show soon. Its other skill is also really good for like starting grade 2 even onto your kill turn with Thing Saver. It says when a unit with blaster attacks, this unit gets plus 5k. So early game, if you set up your board like Blaster Dark, this, and another blaster, you swing, this gets 5, swing, this gets 5, and then this will be a 20. Late game, when you swing with the Thing Saver, technically the Blaster Blade Seeker in Legion is attacking, so this thing, if it's on rear, will get plus 5 for every time this guy attacks, which hopefully will be 3 times. So this is a pretty good beater, and it gets you your missing pieces. And if you like need a Blaster Blade or Blaster Dark for the MLB turn, you just call it to the board, and you don't have to pitch a card in hand. So in my opinion, this is needed probably I have it at 3 right now. I don't think I'd put it at 4, mainly because I don't want to cut a Lu, and I definitely don't want to cut a Blaster Dark. Maybe I'll cut a grade 1. But the next, for grade 1s, we have 3 Wingull Brave. This guy's on hit, top 7 for a blaster and put it in hand. Most of the time, if your opponent doesn't know what you're doing, they're going to just take this and you'll get free advantage the whole game. I would run 4, but it has the name of this, so the 3-1 split is perfectly fine. 3 Blaster Friend Bartgall. You need him because Lu has to be boosted by him. Plus, he's the only counter charge for the deck, which is important for the Thing Saver turn because you got to spend 4 to 5 counter blasts on that turn. He's also a blaster you can get, advantage off these guys in the grade 2 promo. I think 3 is fine because he doesn't have 10k shield and 8k power, so because of the stats, I don't want to run 4. Instead, I run 4 this card. Fruiting Jewel Knight Eunice. This is the best ride in the deck, in my opinion. Sorry, the camera's glitching out a little bit due to the shininess. This lets you throw back normal units like Thing Savers you pitch early on, and also Soul Charge. As far as ride, when a unit is placed on the same circle as it, you draw a card. But if there is an opponent's rear guard in the same column as it, you retire it instead. So this helps if you ride it with the Blaster Dark turns, because you'll retire and then this will be live without you spending a counterblast, depending on where they play the rear guard. Like against Narukami, they usually play the 8k Demolition behind Vanguard, and then you kill it with this and ride him. You don't have to counterblast. This also throws back the next card I'm going to show, which is the grade 1 Overdress PG. This card is really important because we have a G-Guard that calls grade 1 or graders to guard circle. So you can G-Guard and call a PG. The reason you want to use this is because if you're low on hand when you do that, you don't pitch a card. Other PGs, you'd have to pitch a card, but this is really good. I only play 1 because it's really only there for that G-Guard, but we run 2 of the G-Guards and 1 of this because this throws it back to deck, specifically the bottom, so you can't like mess up and drive check it unless you shuffle your deck. And the last card for grade 1s is the Order. Let me put it here. So this thing I call the D-Police Killer because it gets over the guard restrict and the guard bust. I think every premium deck should run it. Unfortunately, I don't think I can throw it back with Eunice, but it's one of those things where if I draw it, great. If not, whatever. I'll figure out a way. As far as triggers go, for Stride Crit, because I don't really want to pitch the pieces to Stride and I'm running low grade 3s, this is really important. And most of the time I do pay Stride with this card rather than the MLBs or the Thing Savers. So this is really important. 4 Floral Paladin Flogel. This is for when the matchup is not leaning towards Thingsaver. Whether I damage 2 or I have to G-assist and pitch them, or I just don't see them, this gives me another way to win the game between this, Lou, Blaster Blade, and Crystal Luster with the GB3. I like having options. One of the go to Soul crit because you need Soul in this deck. Nothing really else to say. 2 draw PG because we're running 2 of these Sentinels, so we can't max out on the draws, which is fine because you kind of want to play more crits in this deck. Reason being, when you go into Thingsaver, you usually want to do it by the time they're at 3 to 4 damage, because otherwise they're just going to take the hits and you waste 4 counterblasts and all that soul for nothing. Last card is 4 of these heal triggers. This one's really important because you want to live early. Also, there are times when you need to call down a grade 2 or greater for a Crystal Luster, and this guy's a grade 3. So if you play him on rear guard, your guard restricts live. And also, this is a stride fodder when you need it. Last card in the deck is the stupid Overtrigger, which I wish we didn't have to run. Luckily, in our February tournaments, we will not be running them. This card doesn't really do much besides break 2 to passes, in my opinion. The way the swings work in this deck is you swing rear guards first, then Vanguard, except for the Thingsaver turn. So when you check this, you're not really plussing off drive checks or anything. It's better than the Cray one, though, because if you do check it on the Thingsaver turn, then the rear guards can give you more trigger chances. The most important stride is this guy. He's really good with Crystal Luster and MLB. If you do it right, you can get guard restrict on the first Thingsaver turn. Swing rear, swing with the Thingsaver, and all 3 of those attacks have guard restrict. Plus, you have 2 more Vanguard attacks after. This card is probably carrying Royal Paladin right now, in my opinion. I don't run 4 because I have a pretty packed G zone. If you want to run 4, by all means. There's stuff in here that's kind of like not necessary, but I like running it just in case. This is not one of those cards, though. You have to run Gancelot because while he's face up in the G zone, all your Blaster Blade cards, including the Seeker, gain resist, which is really important against stuff like Kagero, Narukami, Freeze Ray. This only works during your turn, though, so when it hits their turn, they kind of die, but it doesn't matter at that point. He's the one you flip up with Crystal Luster first time. In my opinion, I don't think I need to run more of him because I'd rather just do him, especially because he gives me quad drive and a crit, but so does MLB. And this would be guard restrict at that point, so I'd rather do that. This next one is an old one, Alfred Holy Saver. I practically use him just to dig the deck for the over if it's late game. This is if I don't have Thingsaver. This is the card that will give you the most drive checks because you'll get 3 on Vanguard and 2 on the rear guard. So if you know the over's still in there and you have to win with it, this is my best option for that. Also, if I only have 1 grade 2, I can't do Crystal Luster, and my 1 grade 2 is a Blaster Blade, I'll do the Alfred. This guy is for when I don't have any counterblasts. He searches out a 2 for free and gives the whole front row plus 3k, which is really important against decks that like to damage deny me, so I'll never get to the Thingsaver turn. Most of the time I'll call like just a Blaster Blade Seeker to draw another card, but that's why he's in there. 2 Twin Sword. This is probably the second best stride in the deck. If you know you have to win the game before you can do the Thingsaver turn, I usually just blow all my counterblasts on this between Lou and Flogel, which most of the time it works. It's pretty good. When he swings while boosted, you counter 1 and call 2 grade 2s, and until the end of turn, whenever you play a rear guard, that unit gets 5k until for each face-up card in your G zone. So with the Lu and them like calling out grade 2s, they keep getting 5k or more if it's late game, if you don't do it first stride. He also gives me the most attacks in the deck, I feel. It spends a lot of counterblast. This next guy I run at 1, he's the new stride from Premium Collection. I use him in case I have to ride Thing Saver because I don't see the MLB and I want to make a marker. That's pretty much it. I'm not a big fan of this card. It's just it's one of the few things I can do with Thing Saver, not, because this needs a blast. This practically is useless if you're going first with Thing Saver as your ride. This doesn't work because you need a blaster name. This needs a blaster name. This is GB3. This you don't want to spend all your counterblasts on. So this guy lets you make a marker and draw cards. If you do it with the Unices, you'll also draw more cards if they don't have a board. So he's alright for that. I mean, if you guys want, just cut him for a 4th Crystal Luster. Or if you feel like you don't need these or the Alfred, the 4 Crystal Luster, another Twin Sword, or Gancelot is totally fine. In terms of G guards now, this is the best one in the clan. Little Great Sage Marin now. This lets you Soul Blast 1 to call out either the PG or a grade 1 that you don't want to draw into and deck thin a little bit. The shield also gets 5k power for whatever you call, so if you guard with this, you get 15. If you call a grade 1, it adds 10 because the grade 1's a 10k shield. And then it also gets +5 from the skill, so it's a pretty big guard. 2 I think is fine. Again, if you don't like this guy, you can run a 1/3 of him. That totally makes sense. Next G guard would be 2 of this new one from Premium Collection. This I run 2 of specifically for Dimension Police because what this does is you pick a grade 2 on the board. It gets 10k shield, and when it intercepts, you counterblast Soul Blast, and you pick a unit, it cannot be hit. This is not a Sentinel, so it gets over that stupid stand trigger that guard breaks Sentinels. I play 2 because if I don't see the order and I have to guard an X-Galp, I do one and then do the other. And the nice thing about playing against D-Police is they don't have any, or no one really uses any main phase retire. So my grade 2s will stay on the board unless they swing at them, and I can guard those with other cards in my hand. Last card in the G zone is one of this, Maskall. This is really only in here for when I know I'm going into Twin Sword because he gives 5k for every face-up G unit. So the turn before, if I'm planning to do a Twin Sword, I'll go into this, flip up one of these, and now I have, for 1 heal trigger, I got 2 more, which is 10k power on this turn. So that's pretty much it for the deck. There's one more thing I wanted to show you, which is cards I thought about putting in, but decided not to. Starting with this V promo we got. If I was not playing Thing Saver, I would definitely run this card. But my issue with this card is if you ride it, it's not even like optional. You have to call it out of soul, which messes up your soul count. Plus, its other skill, which is the good part about it, it costs a counterblast. And it's a counterblast for giving you another attack. The issue I have with that is I can do that with Lu. I can do that with Flogel, so I don't really need this card. Plus, I'd have to cut the Jewel Knight, which builds soul and throws things back, which is really important. This guy, I chose not to run him because I see my grade 3 a lot. But if you don't, then I would probably put this in over a couple Unices, maybe like 2 and 2. This, a lot of people use to search heal triggers in other clans, but I don't really have an issue defending with this deck a lot early because I'm usually the one attacking a lot early. I understand if you want to use it, but I see the grade 3, so I don't feel like you need it. This guy I had in the deck for a long time, but I actually swapped it out for the promo because I feel like this promo can get me the grade 3 or the 2 or even the Barkall grade 1 for a Soul Blast, and this would cost a Counterblast. That's pretty much all I gotta say about it. Also, the one advantage this thing has over this is if you ride it, it works. This doesn't have an on-ride skill. I just prefer this card. If you're playing budget, though, get this card. This card's stupid expensive. And the last card is Lucius. He's really good in a pure thing saver deck because he gives you more than the normal 5 attacks or 6 attacks. What he does is when your grade 3 Vanguard is placed on the Vanguard circle, he goes to Soul, you draw a card and call a card. So if you set up your board like, and you're on the Legion turn, let's say you got, it doesn't really matter, something like that, right? You can, and you know, you got your markers. Usually I'll put like that just to balance it out. Unless I'm playing a deck that has like Denial Griffin, I'll start stacking a couple here instead of on one of them. So you can swing, and even better, we can do it on the Crystallizer turn. Swing Guard Restrict, swing here. After the drive checks, he leaves, you ride another one. Since a unit is placed, he goes to Soul, you draw a card, and you can call another card out to attack. And then if it's this particular card or this particular card, they can call another card because technically you're playing them from your hand. I just don't think I need that much attacks with this deck. Usually people die when I swing with this 3 times. So that's why I'm not running it. Plus, he's only really good on that kill turn. He doesn't really do anything for you early game. Like, yeah, you can call him out to boost, and then when you ride grade 3, he goes to Soul, draw a card, call a card. But the Eunice does a lot more, and the Barkall does a lot more, in my opinion. But yeah, that was the deck. We should be uploading some gameplay of it soon. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's literally my favorite deck in this game, as you can see by like the SPs and the ASRs and everything. I just need to get this stupid $40 promo. But yeah, subscribe, like the video hopefully, and I'll see you guys later.